Okay, good morning, Year 10. Here we are again. In fact, I wished you all back from half term yesterday, didn't I? But I made that lesson before half term. So here we are again, back with the poetry. Anyway, write down 3 quotations from Long Distance 2 from memory. As usual, same way we've always done it. If you haven't managed to memorise any yet, put 3 onto a flashcard and put them with your revision folder. And for at least one of the quotations, do a quotation explosion to explore language and structure. So this, I don't know, semicolon has created this effect, this particular word has created that effect. Make sure you do these because, you know, it's all good practice for what you need to do in the exam. So 5 minutes to do that, then on to the next slide. As ever, we have a learning objective, which is to read and analyse I Wouldn't Thank You for a Valentine by Liz Lochhead. The title you put into your book is I Wouldn't Thank You for a Valentine by Liz Lochhead. Let's call her that, Liz Lochhead. For this lesson, you're going to need a printout of the poem, which I will attach, a pencil for first thoughts and ideas, and different coloured pens or highlighters. Now, as ever, if you have issues with printing things out, which quite a lot of people do, the poem's obviously on this presentation as well, so you could take a photograph of it and use it, you know, get it onto your phone that way, or you can you know, Google it and find text out there, but that doesn't really solve the printing out problem, of course. But nevertheless, there are ways of keeping the poem in front of you. Your phone, I guess, photographing the screen is probably the best one, if you can't print it out, that is. Right, as usual, we look closely at the title first. What can we work out from the title? What do we associate with the words Valentine? What do you think about Valentine's Day? What's your opinion of it? Maybe you love it, maybe you think it's fantastic, maybe you think it's a bit cynical and schmaltzy, but what it actually is an annual festival to celebrate romantic love, friendship and admiration. You might be someone who loves seeing the shops full of balloons, flowers, chocolate, etc. Or maybe you think it's all a cliche and people should express love on any day, in any way they choose. What kind of poem what kind of tone are we expecting from a poem with this title? I Wouldn't Thank You for a Valentine. Do you think it's someone who's quite cynical, perhaps? Maybe a relationship's just ended and they're done with love and so on. Just have a bit of a think about that and put down a couple of notes into your books. 5 minutes for that, then on to the next slide. First reading then. I wouldn't thank you for a Valentine. I wouldn't thank you for a Valentine. I won't wake up early wondering if the postman's been. Should 10 red padded satin hearts arrive with sticky, sickly, saccharine sentiments in very vulgar verses, I wouldn't wonder if you meant them. 24 anonymous interflora roses, I'd not bother to swither over who sent them. I wouldn't thank you for a Valentine. Scrawl swalk across the envelope, I'd just say same old story, I can't be bothered deciphering it, I'm up to here with amore. The whole Valentine's thing is trivial and commercial, a cue for unleashing cliches and candy heart motifs to which I personally am not partial. Take more than singing telegrams or pints of Chanel 5 or sweets to get me ordering oysters or ironing my black satin sheets. I wouldn't thank you for a Valentine. If you sent me a solitaire and promises solemn, took out an ad in the Guardian personal column saying something very soppy such as who loves you, Pooh? I'll tell you, I do, Fuzzy Bear, that's who. You'd entirely failed to charm me. In fact, I'd detest it. I wouldn't be 18 again for anything. I'm glad I'm past it. I wouldn't thank you for a Valentine. If you sent me a single orchid or a pair of Janet Reagers in a heart-shaped box and declared your love eternal, I'd say not to be caught dead in them. They were politically suspect and I'd rather something thermal. If you hired a plane and blazed our love in a banner across the skies, if you bought me something flimsy in a flatteringly wrong size, if you sent me a postcard with 3 X's and told me how you felt, I wouldn't thank you. I'd melt. There we are. That's the first reading. What do you think's going on in there then? Just have, you know, maybe read it over again. What is the mood of the poem? I mean, it's pretty dismissive of Valentine's Day for the most part, but what about that last line? Who's speaking, do you think? Who are they speaking to and how do they feel? So I want answers in full sentences to those 4 questions. Okay, what do we think then? If you weren't able to come up with anything that you were happy with, here are some thoughts of mine. The speaker seems very anti-Valentine's Day throughout, listing all the cliched things she wouldn't thank her lover for. A cliche is a thing that is like a gesture that's really worn out because it's been done so many times. So she thinks that, you know, giving roses and so on is a cliche. However, at the final line, we realise that her feelings might not be that simple. If her lover were to use the day to express genuine feelings, she would melt, a much more positive tone as it suggests being overcome with emotion. It implies that she doesn't want the material gifts, but she does want the declaration of love. So you could write that if you've not managed to work that out for yourself. You can copy those thoughts there on the right, not next to the poem because I'm going to be annotating it in a minute, but put those thoughts into your book. Now it's your turn to do a piece of annotation, which is simply where we, you know, pick out bits of language and structure, and you know, and you write your analytical thoughts there before I do it, before rather we do it all together, and you annotate the poem. So now you understand the speaker's situation and the tone of the poem. You need to read through it again, this time with pencil in hand, ready to annotate your ideas. What can you pick out about how these feelings are presented? You know, are there any question marks in there that you could say that show how the poet feels? Any of enjambment? Remember, look in the back of your book when a line runs through from the end into the next line without punctuation. Remember to use that glossary at the back of your book, that list of poetic terms. And think about form and structure. Think about, is there a regular rhyme scheme, an irregular rhyme scheme? And if whichever one of those it is, what effect has that created? So your thoughts on that, and then on to the next slide. That's 10 minutes for that. Five minutes to get these notes into your books. The poem is cynical. That means cynical just means, if you're cynical about something, it means you don't really believe in it. About the traditions of Valentine's Day. It lists all the things that people do, and then says she would not be grateful if someone did this for her. The final line, though, the very final line, it turns right at the end. It adds a bit of confusion. Is it just the final postcard which would melt her mate, or do we take it from the start of the sentence at the midpoint of the stanza? If you. This brings ambiguity to the message and perhaps suggests that one can be cynical about Valentine's Day until one is a recipient. Maybe that we are all entitled to change our minds. You know that, yeah, Valentine's Day, what a load of old romantic nonsense. Doesn't mean a thing to me. Then as soon as the card comes through the door, oh, you get all, you know, excited about it. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's one of the messages to take from this, that we all think it's hilariously silly, people sending each other little cards and things, but as soon as we get one, we love it. So that's to me what this poem is all about. Okay, here are the annotations that you need to put onto your poem. So I will go round. This is the first part of the poem, then we'll do the second part. So make sure you get these on, and it's this and the annotations on the second part that you're going to take a photograph of and upload it onto class charts. As of today, there's that new upload button, Year 10, because this is we need to check. We need to you know, well, to support you in any way that we can. If you're struggling with any of this, we need to know, and so that we can get some help to you. So it's not a system that's going to cause you to be punished or anything, but that's definitely not what's happening. We just want you to get in the habit of uploading the work onto class charts, sending it to me so that I can have a look at it. I won't comment on every piece, but I will comment probably once a week on something that you've done. So here we are, look, I wouldn't thank you for a Valentine. Repeated phrases of I wouldn't thank you show her distaste at all the various material cliched gifts. Sticky, sickly, saccharine sentiments, which is sibilance to emphasise the sickly, sweet idea. Swither, I think she's made up that word. A neologism, that's a made up word, but don't worry about that. A made up word is a combination of swoon and wither, possibly. Alliteration, very vulgar verses, almost spitting out the vitriol of feeling about this. Interflora, you've probably heard of, is a well-known florist who delivered flowers all over the country, just in case you were wondering what that was. Swalk, I don't know if you young people use that anymore. We used to when I was young. It means sealed with a loving kiss. And then she's Scottish, Liz Lochhead, and she sort of breaks into her Scottish accent there. Same old story, I can't be bothered deciphering it. I'm up to here with Amore. That shows that you could argue, if you're analysing, which you are, that this shows that she's feeling quite strongly about it. This is a cue for unleashing cliches and candy heart motif. A practice speech to just long-held feelings. Singing telegrams. I mean, you won't know what these are. Probably don't. And there's no reason why you should. A singing telegram. You used to be able to pay someone to turn up at someone's door and sing them a kind of a love song. Imagine that. But people don't do that anymore. Thank goodness, actually. Or pints of Chanel 5, which is a perfume. She's saying it would take more than that. Ordering oysters. Oysters are an aphrodisiac, which means that they're meant to make you feel sexy. I really don't know why that is, because they are absolutely vile. And Chanel ironing black sheets has connotations of sort of sex and sexiness as well. So get those annotations into your books, and it takes as long as it takes you, 10, hopefully not more than 15 minutes, and we'll go on to the next slide. Right, here are the last two stanzas. A solitaire. If you sent me a solitaire and promises solemn, solitaire is diamonds are cut in different ways. You can have different sort of, well, they're like designs, but they call cutting it. A solitaire is one that's associated with engagement rings. Take out and add in the Guardian personal column. Again, this is very dated nowadays, but with internet dating and so on. But you used to put adverts in the papers if you wanted to meet up with people. Janet, let's have 18. Context of this is 8. You fairly charming. In fact, I detest it. I wouldn't be 18 again for anything. I'm glad I'm past it. She's saying there that all of this lovey-doveyness is for teenagers, and she's glad she's over it. Ridiculous nicknames, Fozzie Bear, and so on. It's the way people in love give each other little nicknames, don't they? And she's saying she thinks it's all silly. Janet Rager's is a lingerie brand. That's an underwear brand. I'll leave you to pick the bones out of that. Politically suspect. She's saying, you put me into this Janet Rager underwear, it's politically suspect. It's not very feminist, is it? So she doesn't want to be seen as a sex object. Declarations of love. Hired a plane and blazed our love in a banner. Bought me something flimsy in a flatteringly wrong size. She goes through all of these things and says that she thinks it's nonsense, and then the big reveal is she'd swoon and melt if someone did any of those things for her. So that's what I like about this poem. It's all cynical about it, as we all are, until we receive a bit of that love, and then we all like it, don't we? And there's absolutely nothing wrong with occupying both those positions at the same time. All right, so get those annotations into your books, and then on to the next slide. Well, we've seen this slide before, but we'll go through it again. You need to make some notes on this. As well as annotating each poem we read this term, we're going to make sure to capture the key ideas in our exercise books. What you choose to record will be different for each of you, because you should be choosing the ideas that you would feel confident writing about in an exam situation. What you should capture at this stage may later go onto a flashcard you use for revising this poem. So it's important that you do this part. It's important you do all parts of it, but this is going to be one of the parts that we'll keep for revision. Your notes must include reference to the speaker and their feelings perspective. We did that at the start of the lesson. At least 3 quotations. Keep them short. Make your life easy. There's some lovely quotes in there, really short ones. You could learn them in 10 minutes. Some literary terminology, your enjambments, your question marks and why certain pieces of emotional language have been used, points you could make about those, considering of the key themes of the poem. What are they? What's the key theme of this poem? Loss, pain, desire, longing, nature, distance. I think there's definitely some longing in there. This woman would like to get a card, wouldn't she? Reflection, time. Write down your thoughts. And now it's time to learn your 3 quotations, put them onto flashcards, and put them with your revision in your revision folder. Make sure you keep up with this year 10. We're going to need it when we get back. All right then. Well done, and I will speak to you tomorrow.